You're listening to the OK Dad podcast.
Please leave your message for
Daddy-o.
Hi, Daddy-o.
Okay, Dad podcast. Let's start this thing.
Can you not put that on YouTube?
You're listening to my husband talk a lot.
Got audio? Can you hear me?
I got you fine. Can you hear me?
There we are. How are you, man?
I'm doing well.
Good. I'm getting set up here. This is a wonky rig I got going here, and I'm trying to have a decent background so I can look like I know what I'm doing here. I don't know.
Yeah, no worries. No worries.
This is a very informal deal. I love it.
Yeah, this is pretty new to me still. I think the project is growing, so that Okay Dad podcast, but I'm in a couple of dad groups online, and
Yep.
I noticed there was a couple of fathers that posted something, and I saw your comment trying to inform them a little bit about a book that you had written.
Yeah.
And so that kind of initially caught my eye, and I kind of invited you on. But if you want to just introduce yourself, give me a little bit of a history on you.
Certainly. My name is Barrett Johnson, and I run a nonprofit organization called Info for Families. Info is an acronym. INFO stands for Imperfect and Normal Families Only. So we care for and resource and give stuff away to imperfect families only. So we tell folks, if you've got it figured out and know what you're doing, then we're not for you. We're for all the imperfect and normal families out there, which of course is all of us. So
Yeah.
I love the scope of your Okay Dad. I assume it's either your kids rolling their eyes going, okay, Dad, or it's, you know what, it's all right to be an okay kind of, normal average dad. And so I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when I started this, and it was just kind of a mixture of both. I consider myself an okay dad, an okay parent. Just
Sure.
Everybody's trying, right? Nobody's super successful and a
Yep.
perfect family. So I
And
like
if someone
that
tells you they know
acronym.
what they're doing or how to do it right, they're lying to you.
Oh, yeah, I 100% agree with that statement. And then also, I like that second background, because you're the first person that's kind of caught that too. Is they're rolling their eyes and saying, "Okay, Dad, like I'll do this," or "I understand." Okay, Dad.
Yep.
But to kind of jump into everything, I usually start this out because me and you have never met other than texting, "Hey,
Yeah.
are you willing to come on the show?" But I
Sure.
usually start trying to get a background from you.
Yep.
So growing up as a kid, did you
Yep.
have a father?
I did, and grew up in Texas and had an intact family. Mom and dad were pretty solid. Mom was a school teacher, and dad was an engineer. And he was a guy that was reliable and he worked hard. Just a very faithful guy. He wasn't a very engaged guy. He wasn't real emotional, tenderhearted. He's still alive, 82 years old, and again, greatest guy on the planet, but not a real tenderhearted guy.
Yeah.
So I knew I was loved and I was provided for and cared for. So what you'd call a very functional home environment.
Mhm.
But you can always find ways to say this was kind of lacking in certain areas. So that was my upbringing. I had one brother. I married pretty young. I married at 22 years old, and within a year and a half we were pregnant. And so we started our family pretty young.
Yeah.
So, and we had 3 kids quick. And so if I had a family picture, I'd show you. If I was good at this, I probably have a family picture waiting to roll here. But
were y'all
we had-
were y'all down in Texas when you
yeah,
got
still in
married?
Texas.
Okay.
Yep. Texas was home. And so we had 3 kids in 4 years, girl, boy, girl. And we're kind of done. And that was we kind of felt like that we had done our job of having kids.
Mm-hmm.
And we were at a conference. I was working at a church, working with young people, teenagers and college kids as a youth minister, and went to a big event in Austin for college kids. And both my wife and I kind of felt the same conviction. I'm not sure if your audience is people of faith, or maybe some, maybe not, but we both felt this conviction individually
Mm-hmm.
that we were not through having kids, that we needed to have another child. And we both kind of came to each other later on and said, I feel like this is what God was telling me. Well, me too. And kind of a real breakthrough moment. We had a miscarriage soon after that, but then we had our 4th child then. And so we had 3 in a row, and then about a 4-year gap. And then number 4, caboose. So we had girl, boy, and then I had a vasectomy. So that was the order of our kids: girl, boy, vasectomy. There you go.
Yeah.
And so we were really done, sold off our baby stuff, and we were through. And what's funny is our kids were 15 to 7, almost 16 years old to 7. And we had the chance, kind of a long story, but I'll make it as short as I can for our
Oh,
purposes here. But
you can take your time, Barrett. I'm
Good
I'm
deal.
all for the stories.
Good. Well, my wife had been really part of kind of mentoring and shepherding and discipling this a friend back in Texas. We had moved to Atlanta in 2005, excuse me. And that old friend, Amy, came through town with her family on vacation. They stopped at our house, spent the night, and we were sitting around having dinner and catching up. And my wife asked, "How is Shelby doing?" And Shelby was our friend Amy's cousin.
Mhm.
And 2 years before, Shelby was a 18-year-old girl, had gotten pregnant, had a baby, and a little boy. And she got really sick, had an autoimmune disorder, was in the hospital for like 6 months trying to figure out what was wrong with her.
Mhm.
And so our friend Amy cared for her baby for about 6 months. She got better, was managing as a 19-year-old single, 18, 19-year-old single mom, just barely getting by, of course, and she got pregnant again.
Oh wow.
And so we're asking Amy, so how's Shelby doing? Well, she's
Yeah.
pregnant. What's going on? Well, she's not sure. She's not with the father of the child anymore, and she doesn't want to abort. She feels really convicted not to abort, but she doesn't think she could handle another child at 19 years old when she's raising this little boy who was about 2 years old by this time.
Mhm.
And so my wife said, we have a real heart for single moms and for foster parenting and that kind of stuff. My wife said, has she considered adoption? And Amy said, well, she's considered it, but she can't imagine the thought of giving her child away and never seeing her again. And so my wife, says, well, would she consider adopting to us? And we could have kind of an open adoption where she could stay in contact with her biological child. And I think I was drinking a sip of tea or something of dinner, and I did the old spit take,
Yeah.
what did you say, honey? Adopt, and so yeah, I said, okay, let's talk about that. And so I said, well, we could talk about that as a possibility. We had again 15-year-old, 15, 13, 12, and 7,
Yeah.
and let's adopt. And I said, and I'm a man of faith, and I said, yeah, I'll pray about that.
Mhm.
And my logic was, I'll pray about it as long as the end of my prayers, the answer is no. And so we started praying about it. And at the end of about 5 or 6 weeks of praying about it, I felt this conviction again. And the conviction I felt was, I feel like it was God speaking to me. And I'll get spiritual on you here, if that's okay.
Oh, that's perfectly fine.
I felt like God was speaking to me saying, you know what, I'm into caring for the fatherless. Why wouldn't you be into caring for the fatherless? And Barrett, all the reasons you have for why you wouldn't adopt are all reasons related to your convenience and your comfort. We don't have enough money, and we don't have enough room, and our house is too small, and yada, 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 yada. And I think God really spoke over me. And this is, I think, a real spiritual moment in my life. I think like God said, when did I call you into a life of ease and comfort and convenience? I've called you to do hard things, and that's going to make you a better man and make you better. So we adopted. So we've got, again, Maddie now, this is years ago. So my oldest now is 20, Lindsay is now 27 years old,
Mhm.
28 years old. We have 28, 26, 25, and then a 20-year-old who's in college, and then a 13-year-old that we adopted.
Okay.
So we're further along the journey now, but that's our
Yeah.
story. One time we had 5 kids. We had 5 kids. We had one in college, one in high school, one in middle school, one in elementary school, and one in preschool, all at the same time.
Oh wow.
So people ask me, so have you ever gone through this stage of parenting? I'm in this stage right now. I'm doing them all at the same
I'm in
time.
all the
So,
stages currently.
all at the same time.
Yeah.
So we're perpetually exhausted, and but it's been good. 3 are out of the house. 3 of my oldest kids are married now, and we have 6 grandchildren.
Yeah.
So I'm early 50s, but I've got 6 grandkids. So
Yeah.
my kids started young and started having babies quick too. So that whole be fruitful and multiply that you see in the Bible, we took that literally. And so
Yeah.
we got
Definitely.
kids coming out of our armpits. So that's kind of where we are now. And again, back to our ministry, we're in this nonprofit that's Imperfect Normal Family Zone. It's all about equipping moms and dads primarily to have meaningful conversations about important things with their kids.
Mhm.
And so we wrote a book called The Talks, which is about how to have talks about sex and dating and pornography and all those different things that you're kind of awkward talking to your kids about. We've kind of great resources to help
Mhm.
parents have those conversations. And then probably the book that you probably saw that I mentioned to you on our Facebook group that we're on, we're a book called Meet Me in the Middle, which is a book for dads and their kind of teenage daughters.
Mhm.
Robbie, you have 2 kids, right?
Right. I got 2 with 1 on the way.
Okay, gotcha. And you have boy, girl. What do you have?
I have an 11-year-old daughter, and then I got
Yeah.
a 3-year-old son, then I got
All
another
right.
son coming.
Very good. Well, what the Meet Me in the Middle book that's for fathers and daughters that we wrote, it's really based upon the premise that I feel like about 12 years and under. I mean, dads have got girls, our daughters wrapped around our fingers, and they've got us wrapped around their fingers. I mean,
Mhm.
that relationship is usually pretty solid. Crawling up in the laps and bedtime kisses and cuddles. Usually, the first 10 or 12 years of life, dads have got daughters' hearts, and we can crush it as girl dads, right?
Right.
My experience of my own daughters and a lot of folks I've talked to along the way is that let me be blunt, once our girls get curves and that stage of life through kind of puberty and early adolescence, once they start turning into little women, that daddy daughter relationship gets a lot more complicated. It can still be just as rich, but it just gets harder. You know,
Mhm.
suddenly our dad jokes aren't fun anymore, and we're embarrassment to them, and you can't be as physical with them. You can still, but it's just different, and it's harder. Once that awkward teenage years kicks in. So
Right.
this book we wrote, Meet Me in the Middle, is designed to be a premise of, let me come a little bit your direction, daughter, and you
Mhm.
come a little my direction. Let's meet in the middle. And the book, I've got a copy here somewhere. I'll just show it to you. It's fun. Um, Take my headphones off so you can't hear me. The book is written unique. It's really cool. If you look at it this way, it's Meet Me in the Middle, a book for teenage girls. 10 critical conversations you need to have with your dad.
Mhm.
Okay, and so we start there. It's a book for girls, right? You flip it over this way. It's Meet Me in the Middle, a book for dads. It's 10
Oh.
conversations you need to have with your daughter. It's 10 chapters for dads. Same 10 topics.
Yeah.
Boys and technology and your identity and beauty and all those different things. One of them is me talking to the girl. Hey, here's what you need to know. And I got quotes all over the place from my 20 something daughters and their friends,
Mhm.
almost as big sisters saying to these girls that were 13, 14, 15, hey, the issue of beauty, here's what you need to know. On the issue of your identity, on friends, on sex, all these different things, here's what you know. And then I write to the dads the same way in the other half of the book, saying, dads, here's what your daughter's going through. Here's what you need to know. And ideally, what you do is the daughter reads her chapter 1, the dad reads his chapter 1, and then you go, get a milkshake or a cup of coffee and you talk about it. What did
Yeah.
you read? And so hopefully the book tees up conversations that
Mhm.
dads and daughters need to be having, but it kind of makes the book the bad guy to kind of tee up these issues to
Yeah.
kind of make it easier for a dad and daughter to kind of then talk about what they learned or what they saw or whatever else. But it helps a dad stay connected with the heart of his daughter, which is a very hard thing to keep.
Right. What did you kind of lean on with your first daughter when you started noticing that phase, like her preteen to teenage years? I'm noticing
Yeah.
my daughter right now is going through that. So, like you said, some of those dad jokes just aren't hitting
Yep.
anymore.
Yep. Yep.
There's a little bit more attitude during certain
Mhm.
things.
Yep.
Who did you kind of lean to, or what did you kind of lean to kind of help you through that phase?
I did look to other dads who I thought were crushing it with their teenage daughters. I looked for families that I knew in the community, in the church, and old friends. So I thought, that dad and that daughter have got something going on. What can I learn from that? And I'd pepper dads with questions. I'd even pepper their
Yeah.
daughters if I knew the daughter. Hey, you and your dad seem to be pretty cool. What is it about that? What does your dad do? And then I'd ask the dads what they do. And what I learned more than anything else was what's critical in all this is capturing and then keeping your daughter's heart.
Hmm.
That's the best way I can describe it. That heart relationship, which again is easy, 10, 11, 10 and under. When they're little girls, it's pretty easy to have that. It just gets harder as they get older to keep their hearts. Because you don't have their heart, they're not going to listen to you. If you don't have, a
Hmm.
tender relationship, they know they can come to you. They know that you'll always love them, that you're there for them. If they don't sense that, then again, it's hard to press into their hearts and their lives when you want to lead or when you need to discipline them or when you need to kind of give guidance and direction and whatever else. And so I work tenaciously to get and then keep my girls' hearts along those ways.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
and
really
there's a
good
great,
because I haven't
yeah,
seen especially like in my generation. So I'm like the 30s, born in the 90s.
Yeah.
My generation, I don't see a ton of people seeking out like friends, family, churches for different ideas that'll work. And
Yeah.
I definitely did not see that like in my father's generation.
I
So
think your father and my father, both of them, I think my generation, I'm 52 years old. My generation was the first generation when I was parenting in the early 90s,
mhm,
2000s, that we started seeing a flood of resources,
yeah,
tools, language, to talking about these issues. My dad, your dad probably didn't have nothing. You earn a good living and you bring home the bacon and you make sure your bills are paid. You
mhm,
provide for your kids, and that's probably the bulk of what a dad was responsible for doing. Maybe coach a boys, baseball team or whatever else.
yeah.
But there are now so many resources, so many tools, and even so many people available that are willing to talk about this stuff if you will just seek them out as a dad.
Right. Just like you, like I really appreciate you, cutting out some time in your day for this, especially parenting during the 90s. You're probably the first generation to parent when technology started coming out.
Yes. Yep. And that's a heartbeat of kind of even our nonprofit, what we do. We recognize that technology has changed everything. My young teenagers, my oldest kids, when they were young, the first flip phones started kicking in. So they started connecting,
Hmm.
just, texting like barbarians, 111 222,
Yep.
all that stuff we did. But then obviously, again, my kids, the first generation, really grew up with smartphones,
Hmm.
which have been an absolute game changer, which is, again, another piece of our work and our nonprofit. We design tools to help parents talk with their kids about the impact of technology. And so during coronavirus, we do a lot of events. We go into schools and churches and talk about this stuff. But during the coronavirus pandemic, we've been kind of locked in like everyone else has.
Yeah.
And so we're not doing events. So late summer, July and August, we created a digital course called Smartphones 101 that's designed for dads, moms and dads to sit down and watch with their kids, little 7-8 minute long videos where I kind of talk about technology and talk about effects on your brain and social
Hmm.
media and anxiety, depression, and pornography and texting and all those different things. And so teach that, and kids, moms, dads, and kids can watch that together and take notes.
Yeah.
So again, like our goal is to tee up those conversations because we know these things are game changers for our kids. What are we doing as dads to step into that and help our kids and give them the
Yeah.
direction that they may not know that they need, but you and I as dads know that they need.
Right.
You know?
So with technology too, that's one of the things I wanted to talk about, especially with you have some knowledge on it. It's not enough time for us to have a ton of like major research on it, but we do know it's correlated and linked to depression,
Yep.
anxiety,
Yep.
likes, how many likes did you get versus the other girl at school.
It's
All
crazy.
these
Yep.
things are in there. My daughter is 12 and we ended up getting her a phone last year and we're using the Apple screen time, which locks her out of her phone and all the apps but three. And I really enjoy that because she's still able to communicate with us. And I
Yep.
remember as a teenager, my mother let me go to amusement park. So I got to go to Fiesta, Texas, here in San Antonio.
Love it. Love it.
And she sent us out, but it was I'll pick you up or I'll drop you off. But the other parent that you're going with, they're gonna have to pick you up or drop you off, whichever one I
Yeah.
did. So
Sure.
we end up going, we end up losing track of time. It's 9 o'clock at night. We didn't have cell phones back then.
Nope.
And we ran out of change to actually call her on the payphone. So we ended up calling a taxi, and that taxi ended up taking us, I think maybe only 20 miles because we couldn't afford to
Oh my
go the rest of the
goodness.
way home.
How old were you? How old were you?
Oh, we were probably 13. We were maybe
Unbelievable.
13, going on
Yeah.
14.
Yep.
And so even now, like a simple, hey, can you come pick me up from a text message is a game changer. Like that would have
Definitely.
been a blessing for us
Yep.
back in the day.
Yep.
But here we are, 10 o'clock at night in a taxi. And I think about my daughter being 12, 13-year-olds doing that. Like I would lose my mind. Like if I
The
didn't.
security that these things
Mhm.
have brought. I mean, even our stuff that we talk to parents about this stuff, technology and smartphones, all it has added so many good things to our lives. I mean,
Right.
so it's we're thankful for them. They're good things, but we just need to be intentional as we parent to take in consideration that, in a nutshell, left alone in my device when I was 14 years old, I would do stupid things,
Hmm.
and so there's a lot of opportunities to do stupid things on smartphones these days,
Hmm.
and so it just needs to be one more area that we certainly give to our kids and teach them how to use well and with wisdom, but that we coach them on how not to do stupid things on their phones.
Yeah. So You seem like you've led like a pretty busy life raising everybody. How has it been with you and your wife? Have y'all
Yeah.
pretty much been like goal oriented with each other, communication wise?
We've tried to be, and the reality is the kids can be, life suckers in regards to your marriage. It's really easy for things to get out of balance.
Hmm.
But when we've tried to practice as best we can, and we teach it when we do events for parents. When we teach a parenting event, we do again a lot of parenting skills classes at churches and schools. We will usually lead with, hey, the best thing you can give your kids to raise great kids, the best thing you can do is to model and prioritize a healthy marriage. That's got to be
Yeah.
your priority over your kids. And many parents, moms particularly, well, my kids need me. I have to what your kids need is more than anything else is mom and dad in this together. And that's not a diss
Yeah.
against single moms, single dads. There's a lot of folks out there that are doing it and being successful. But the best way to pull off parenting is to do it as a team with a
Right.
partner. And so if we can create moms and dads together in that process, so you've got to prioritize your marriage. So it's been work. We've had to do that. We've had to look for ways to put boundaries and close the door at a certain time and say, mom and dad have checked out. Don't bother unless
Yeah.
you're bleeding. And the rhythms of parenting, like getting kids to bed on time, is critical because it gives us the time as a married couple to
Hmm.
disconnect and unplug, whatever else. We made it a discipline through the years. We almost created a Sabbath type of rhythm of one out of every 7 days. Once every 7 days, we try to go on a date, and that's to
Yeah.
this day. And we're not always perfect with that, but we aim for that. And
Yeah.
then once every 7 weeks, we try to find a way where we get away overnight without the kids, or we pawn the kids off to grandparents, or we're alone in the house for 24 hours, where we can
Hmm.
just reconnect. And then every 7 months, or at least once a year, we try to take a vacation
Yeah.
together without the kids, and we find some money, or we go find some resort in Mexico that has a timeshare presentation where we can get in for cheap and sit through 90 minutes of
Yep.
painful timeshare presentation to get a 5-day vacation by ourselves. And so, yeah, you got to prioritize that. And so, any dads out there listening about this stuff think, I don't have time for my marriage. Then you need to make some time. You need to find
Yeah.
something that changes somewhere to foster and nurture that relationship, because nobody stumbles and falls over backwards into a good marriage. You got to work it. You got to
Yeah.
give
I
attention
think
to it.
I was talking to somebody recently, and I think they were about to get married or put the ring on it.
Yeah,
But I was telling them, hey, have y'all gone through couples therapy, marriage counseling, anything?
yeah,
Because that really does help. Even
sure.
even if you guys think you guys are the best relationship
Yep.
going through it, because the biggest thing, one of the keys is knowing that your partner is not going to be meeting your expectations all the time. Like there's just simply not. They're not
Your
going to be.
partner's going to let you down. They're going to
Yeah,
be a disappointment.
and you yourself are too. But to always keep putting that work into it is
Sure.
one thing. With that, what has been some of your like hardest challenges in your marriage?
We probably struggle with the most common thing most folks struggle with. We're normal. We're experts in this stuff, but we struggle with the same stuff that everybody else struggles with.
Hmm.
And so for us, we've had to deal with the fact that we are very different people. And the male female differences are exaggerated. Stereotypical male female differences are exaggerated in my wife and I, where she's very emotional and I'm very logical. I can compartmentalize issues in our life. Are we going to talk about the money? Can I start with the money and nothing else? When we talk about the kids, I can stay in that box. Jennifer, my bride, she is connects the boxes really, really easily. She's all over the map. She's
Hmm.
moving one thing to the next, and so it's hard for me to keep up. And so for me, my pattern is to think, if we're not fighting and if things are civil and the bills are paid, then everything's awesome. We're crushing it in the marriage department. Whereas Jennifer has, I think, so much greater emotional needs to be connected to me and for us to spend time together. And I can sometimes, after 31 years of marriage almost now, I can lose sight of those things.
Yeah.
I can get kind of almost lulled into a sense of passivity of just kind of rolling through the motions and forget, oh, I've got to pursue my wife's heart. Oh, I've got to that guy that she married, who, well, when I was courting her and wooing her,
Hmm.
and bringing her flowers and taking her on dates and saying nice things to her, that guy that I sold to her that made her fall in love with me, I mean, she certainly didn't fall in love with me and marry me because of my good looks. That wasn't it. It's because I made an effort in the early days of our dating to pursue her and to court her. That guy, when I was 21 years old doing all that, is the guy she married and the guy she expects to show up every day.
Yeah.
And so I kind of like most guys, we've got kind of a conquering mentality. Like, let me conquer the girl. Okay, success. I have won the girl. She is mine. She said, yes, we're married now. Let me move on to another objective and go
Hmm.
conquer that thing for a while, work or whatever. And I think I've got to remember every single day that Jennifer's desire to be pursued by me and passionately loved by me, that's never going away. It's
Yeah.
never going away. I've got to bring my A game regularly, and probably like most guys out there, that can be hard. I
Yeah.
forget
We
and I
forget.
neglect.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so for me, our needs being different, me having to go, God remind me that her needs are different from mine. I've got to step into her world and meet her needs on a regular
Yeah.
basis. Great example. We fought about this yesterday. This is a fight can I tell you about a fight that we had yesterday? This is great.
Yeah.
So again, we go in and speak at a lot of schools and churches, and we haven't done a lot of that in the last 9 months because of COVID. But I got the invite to go speak at a church in Tampa, Florida. In Florida, we're in Atlanta, Georgia now, but it's a plane ride down there. And speak on a Sunday morning, like going like preach in the church. It's a friend of mine who pastors this church, and I'm like, great. I'll just zip down there on a flight on Saturday night. I'll preach a couple times on Sunday morning, and I'll fly home on Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock, and honey won't be gone long. So I'm thinking, how can I love my wife well? I'll go and I'll be back really soon before you even miss me. Help manage our house and our kids and blah blah blah. And she's like, you know what? I've been stuck in this house for 9 months. I've been dying for something different. I need a new change of scenery. I'm bored to tears, and you have a chance to fly to Florida. You couldn't have thought, hey, let's leave on Friday and make a long weekend of it and spend a couple of days with our toes in the sand at the ocean, the beach, her favorite place to go.
Hmm.
And I just had this, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
And I think it's a great idea and we're going to do it. But because it was her idea and not my idea, it reflected the fact that I'm kind of a neglectful,
Yeah.
drop the ball husband. I don't think of these things naturally. And for her mind, she's like, a chance to be together away and celebrate. Barrett, you're an idiot for not having that as your first thought. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I love the girl. I love spending time with the girl. I love going to the beach with the girl. It's our favorite thing to do. Why didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
It's because my boneheaded brain was thinking, work and schedule, and again, compartmentalize.
Yeah.
I had the work kind of business, box in front of me. I was focusing on that, not realizing that, hey, you could connect that with, the pursuit of your wife. And so again, yet another boneheaded thing that I did
Yeah.
just
No,
24 hours ago.
I'm very similar to that. When you get something in your head, you're like, okay, let me plan this out. I can knock this job out. I can work. And then after that, then we can spend time with each other. And I've done
Yep.
that similar on projects here at home when my wife isn't very handy, but she likes being with me.
Yep.
And there was a small little windstorm that came and it blew a big section of the fence down. And we just moved into the neighborhood this past year. So
Yep.
we're right at the front of the property. I'm like, let me go ahead and just start putting this fence together again. So the very next day I'm putting the fence together again. She comes home and she goes, "Oh, you should have waited for me. I would have helped you." And I was like, I didn't know you wanted to help. And she's like, "Yeah, I would love to help you. How can I help you?" And so she was outside in a matter of 10, 15 minutes after she came home from working, just putting up boards with me, putting nails in. And that stuff, like you said, we're just a one-track mind. Like, okay, let's knock this out, this
Yep.
out, this out, and then we can go be with our wives. And that's something we lose track of way too easily.
Yeah. Well, it's a great question. We gotta maybe practice asking. I've never thought of this before, but yeah, just a great question. How could we do this together?
Mm-hmm.
And whatever that might be, it may be a project, it may be, running an errand. How can we take advantage of this thing to connect somehow? And that's true
Yeah.
for your spouse. That's true for your kids. It's just looking for ways to, instead of, let me, knock this out and then we can have time together. Maybe
Yeah.
we can make this a together thing,
Yeah.
That's
Doing-
we had a break there, man. We had a break there. We just,
doing more stuff together. Hey, would you like doing this? Because that really isn't going to hurt anything. Hey, would you want to
No.
put up a fence with me? Oh no, I
Yeah.
don't want to do that. It's too hot outside.
Yeah, great. I just want to be with you, but I
Yeah.
got to go do the job. But hey, I just want to be with you. That's
Yeah.
a great way to do that there.
So
Outstanding.
how y'all have been married for 35 years? You said
31 years.
31.
years. Yeah, we celebrate 31 this summer,
Okay.
and it's awesome. We had scheduled. We don't have a lot of money. We're on a budget, but we've been saving for like 5 years for a 30th anniversary trip. We found this
okay.
really cheap cruise that's extravagant. It's a cruise that cruises out of Honolulu, Hawaii.
Mhm.
It goes 7 days around Hawaii Islands, and then it cruises down to South Pacific, goes to like Bora Bora and
Mm.
Tahiti so 14-day cruise. We saved our nickels and dimes for like 3 years, pulled the trigger on it, had it booked. Cruise ship was scheduled to leave on April 1st, 2020.
Mm.
Have you heard what happened in 2020? Are you aware of this thing called the
Yep.
coronavirus pandemic? Yeah. So that got scrubbed. We pushed it ahead 12 months. And so now it's scheduled for April 1st, 2021. And we're betting, 100-to-1 odds it's going to be canceled still because the world is still not back to normal. So we've had 2 disappointments in a row regarding that, trying to figure out what we can do to celebrate 30 years of marriage before we're 35 years of marriage,
Yeah.
but trying to prioritize that and do that. That was our disappointment. So
Yeah.
well, we'll take a weekend trip to Tampa. That'll be just as good, right? Just as good.
as long as you guys take off on Friday.
There we go. Friday. Indeed.
So, Barrett, the way that your father was with you,
yeah.
are you able to kind of use some of that in your parenting, the way you parent, or are you trying to be radically like different from him and more involved?
No, I'm not a wounded man because my dad didn't love me. I'm not one of those guys. I can see what dad did well and how he did from the strengths that he had and how he was raised. And I think that was entrusted to me what he did. And honestly, for dads out there who are listening that come from very broken homes and dad was horrible or abusive or an alcoholic or whatever else, I think you can still take what was entrusted to you by what dad did wrong to say, I'm going to leverage that. I'm going to break the chains of the past and I'm going to do different. But for me, it was taking the strength of my dad's life that he put into me and saying, all right, he gave me an amazing start to my life, but I am not him. And I'm going to, take the legacy he left that was strong, but then lead from the strengths that I feel like I have and the way God's wired me to make sure that I, step in to my kids' lives the best possible. And many times for me, it's asking, sometimes it's indirectly, but a few times along the way, it's been very direct, but going to my kids and saying to my kids, how am I doing?
Yeah.
Grade me as a dad.
Yeah.
And you got to be ready for the honest answers. Your 8-year-old, they probably give you sweet answers. Your 15-year-old, maybe a little bit different.
Yeah.
But it has to be great. And even there's been a few times that I've said, you know what, I don't want you growing up with some father wound where you feel like I didn't love you or didn't care for you, didn't step into your life or I wasn't there for you, whatever else. I asked my daughter this once when she was about 17. I said, fast forward to you're 30 years old, you're sitting down with a therapist. And she asks, how was your relationship with your father? And how did it impact who you are today? What are you going to tell that therapist in 10 years? And I want to know the answer. She gave me some honest, most of it was good. Most of it was, but there were some things, Dad, sometimes I say this and you say that, or sometimes I do this. And I feel like you kind of communicate this to me. And it was great information because I had no idea some of the things I was doing with the best of intentions were resulting in, this wound or hurt. But I've done my best to take what Dad gave to me and say, how can I take the best of that? And then,
Yeah, I think that was a great way to phrase it, like a wounded. You don't have anything that's like wounded you from your dad.
No.
There's a ton of people, like you said, that come from broken homes that have some really deep wounds. There's other people. I don't feel like I came from a broken home or a broken father figure. He did his best. It may not have been like superstar status dad, but he did everything that he knew. And I've always seen it to where we're at least a decent parent is trying to do better than their parent. And what I've seen with my dad is he did that. He really didn't have a father figure in his life growing up. He
Sure.
dropped out of middle school to support his family and his, single mother at the time who got married again. And so he hasn't had much education, but he loves to like read and think about stuff. So we've always had those conversations.
Yeah.
There's people out there who don't have father figures like that. But another thing too is I've seen some really good dads, and I've talked to some really good dads who I remember one story is kind of like sticking out to me right now. Everything he's talked to me about, he's an ideal dad. I would love for him to have been my dad. And he's in his, I think, early 60s, and he was talking about trying to be a better dad. He's got a couple of 18, I think he has an 18 and 17-year-old. And they're in high school, and he was absolutely crushed because he went and talked to his daughter and said like, hey, I made some food. And his daughter said, Dad, I can't eat that. He goes, why can't you eat that? She said, I'm a vegetarian. And later on, after we had talked about it that week, he went back and he expressed to us, I feel so terrible because I didn't know that my daughter was a vegetarian, at this time. Granted, she's a teenager, she's going through phases,
Sure.
she's learning stuff
She-
about herself.
You probably won't be a vegetarian next week. So
Yeah. So he was like, destroyed, like, oh, like I messed up.
Yeah.
And he's telling us face to face, we're talking, but even that conversation wasn't directed at his daughter. And so his wife was there talking to us as well too. Well, let's have this conversation with her and let her know that you at least feel bad about it. You're opening up to her. And so he ended up having a conversation with her. But I think that's where most of us, just as men, we're typically designed to, oh, okay, like we're just gonna stop talking, we're gonna stop being emotional, we're gonna put up a blockade. But him at 60 going back and talking to his daughter and letting him know that's pretty big, especially for somebody
Sure.
that old to
Yeah.
say, hey, like I messed up. I'm sorry. Like, how can we correct this? How can I come back and let you know that I do care about you? And of course, I think his daughter it wasn't that big of a deal. It was at the time she feels bad that he doesn't. So
Yeah.
even stuff like that, I think can put wounds on children, teenagers at the time. Because you may grow up in an awesome family, but when everybody's in a circle talking about, oh, like my dad used to hit me. Well, my dad didn't know I was a vegetarian for 2 years. Like that could be something. It may be the only negative thing in their childhood, but that could
Yeah.
be something too that they just hold on to, which
Yeah.
is kind of tough because we're not gonna know until 20, 30 years, like you said, like when you're 30, thinking back, like what's gonna stick out to you. And
Yeah.
for me, like hopefully it's something like that, like, oh, you forgot one day I was a vegetarian.
Something
I'll take
relatively
that.
small. Yeah.
Yeah, I would
Exactly.
take that.
That's not bad. I think any dad out there, for all of us as dads, any dad listening that kind of is hearing us this conversation, I think there's this phrase called that says "hurt people hurt people." Have you heard that before?
Yeah.
And I think it's, if there is some significant brokenness in any dad's heart from childhood or how you were raised that you haven't been able to appropriately deal with and overcome and move past, that I think that those dads need to get some help, because if we're wounded to the point that we're holding a grudge and there's brokenness there, it's going to impact how we parent our kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's not good for anybody, our kids in particular, for us as dads, but also our kids, the next generation that comes behind us. Boy, there's nothing valuable that comes from if we're constantly leading from a place of brokenness that hasn't been dealt with. Obviously, we're all broken people,
Mm-hmm.
but if you haven't overcome it and you're walking around with that baggage somehow, and it's impacting how you parent, boy, we gotta get help for that, because nothing is not insurmountable. Everything can
Yeah.
be dealt with, even no matter how what hand of cards you were dealt. You can overcome that, and you can say, I'm going to draw a line in the sand, and that was generations before me. There was alcoholism, my grandpa and my dad, but for me, no, I'm going to be different. I'm going to break the chain, break the cycle, and I'm going to bring something different to my kids. And I'm going to, even if I don't have a good example, like you said, you found a guy that you really respected, that his worst mistake is not knowing his daughter was a vegetarian.
Yeah.
I think we all need to find some dads who are doing well, and learn from them, and say, hey, would you help me? Would you show me? and put ourselves in community. That's why I love even the Facebook groups that we've seen out there. I love, because guys can ask a question and about something. And it's funny on some of those Facebook groups, you see some of the responses are,
Hmm.
good advice. But sometimes someone asks a question that you see is from a place of someone just doesn't know any better.
Yeah.
And it's kind of ruthless sometimes. The response is like, dude, you're an
Hmm.
idiot. I always want to say, hey, be gracious. Maybe this guy just doesn't know
Yeah.
that's not what you do, or that's not how you do that.
Yeah.
So let's,
Everybody's been in that spot at least once for
yeah, so
something.
let's lovingly say, hey, you know what? Let me lovingly tell you, pal,
Hmm.
that's not the way you do it. Let me just correct it. Here's some
Yeah.
better ways to do it. And you're gonna have a better outcome with whatever you're doing. We've got to be gracious and come alongside each other because we desperately need each other.
I agree with that 100%. If I would say even look at it like if your kids were reading your comments that you're leaving,
Yeah,
like is that what you want to be remembered for, even if
sure.
nobody's looking? Like
Yep.
how you're responding to someone that's asking for help, because it does. It takes a lot to ask for help, to
Yep.
even go out into the community and ask other people like what they're thinking, or just like you said, hey, how are you doing this? Can you help me? I have a bunch of questions I got for you. Like
Yeah.
those things, it takes courage. It takes courage to do all those things and ask.
No doubt. No
I
doubt.
get
But
I
we need
guess
it.
Barrett, to kind of close it out, what would you, if I always end this with fatherly advice, if you had all
Yeah.
the dads listening, what would be a piece of fatherly advice that you would give to them?
I said it earlier, but I'll say it again and give you some tools. I think a dad, the most important thing you can do. Okay. If you're married, you need to love your wife well. That's a starting place. That's a
Hmm.
no-brainer. But in regards to particularly parenting, fatherly advice, I think you need to work to grasp and maintain and tenaciously hold your children's hearts through the journey of birth to 20 years old and launching them out in the world as young adults. I think it's a fragile thing, and I think from everything else that we do stems from that heart relationship. Any rules you give as a dad that doesn't have relationship undermining it, undergirding it, and supporting it
Hmm.
is just going to lead to rebellion against those rules. Um, I heard somebody say this once, and I'll teach this at seminars we give. I think it's brilliant. You remember those times in your life when you were considering, maybe you're 15 years, 16 years old, and you're considering doing something stupid. Let's say you're a party and you're considering, drinking a bunch of beer. Okay. And if this is not something my parents want me to do, I'm gonna get in trouble. One of two thoughts that go through your head in that moment as a teenager. One thought is this: if my parents find out, they'll kill me. Second option: if my parents find out, it will kill them. Now check the difference there.
Hmm.
One of those concerns is I'm worried about being punished for getting in trouble, right?
Yeah.
The other is I'm concerned about what this is going to do to the relationship that I have with my mom and dad.
Hmm.
I'm worried about breaking my parents' hearts. That's how you know if you have your child or your teenager's heart.
Yeah.
If they go through what goes through their mind is I value this relationship, that I want to do the right thing. I want to be wise with my decisions because I don't want to break my parents' hearts and this valuable relationship I have with them. That's your goal as a dad, is to develop that. There's a great book that I love called it's a marriage book called The Five Love Languages.
Hmm.
It's probably the best-selling marriage book ever written. There's a version of it called The Five Love Languages for Kids and The Five Love Languages for Teens. There's a couple different versions. It kind of walks through how to determine your kid's love language, whether it's quality time or physical touch or words of affirmation or those different things. Figure out their love language and learning how to speak it more clearly.
Yeah.
Because many times I think the premise of the book is many times we're speaking love to our kids, but if we're speaking our language and not their language, they're not getting the message.
Oh,
I can
that's
tell them,
a big one right there, Barrett. I think you just
yeah.
hit the nail on the head.
Well, if that's
Yeah.
what Gary Thomas, the guy wrote the book, Gary Chapman, excuse me. Gary Chapman says that it's kind of like if my wife was born and raised in France and she speaks French, I could tell my wife, I love you, I love you. Here's why I love you. I love you because you're beautiful. I love you. I can do that all day long. But if I'm speaking English and she only speaks French, she's not getting the message, right?
Hmm.
So we've got to learn to figure out what our kids' love language is and speak their language, not our
Yeah.
language. My wife, my love language is physical touch. I love being touchy, huggy, sexy. I'm all of that, right? My wife's love language is more quality time. So I can be in bed with her, just stroking her back and scratching her back and rubbing her leg. I'm thinking, I'm loving this girl so well. And she's thinking, would you get your hands off of me? Stop it.
Yeah.
I'm an annoyance. So figuring out what your kids' love language is and speaking it is a great way to kind
Yeah.
of maintain their hearts along the way.
Did you
And it
have
gets,
to tailor that language with all of your kids?
oh, of course, every kid's different, definitely.
Yeah.
I used to have 5 theories on raising kids, and now I've got 5 theories, 5 kids and no theories, right?
Yeah.
I don't. Every kid is different. Every
Yeah.
kid is unique, and so you've got to just say with each kid, what's it look like to love this kid well, to reach their heart, to maintain their heart. Is it spending time with them? Is it long walks? Is it sitting down in their bed at night reading a story? Is it whatever it might be? How do I love this child well?
Yeah,
And
that's a real big one there because with me and my father, I think he knew how to talk to me. We'd
yeah,
have very grown up conversations, especially like growing up 9 to probably
sure,
17 years old.
yeah, it's great.
But when it came to my sister, she's 3, 4 years older than me.
Yeah,
When it came to my sister, he didn't have the same connection with her that he had with me. So I'm very close to my father. I can talk to him about many different subjects, depending on the day, or if it's something too hard for him and he doesn't know how to like converse with it, I won't go that hard with him in the conversation, but he can definitely talk to me about anything. With my sister, it was never really there.
yeah.
And I think he had so much success talking to me, the only thing that he knew was that. So he tried using the way he talked to me to my sister.
It worked on my son. Let me try it with my daughter. Yeah,
Yeah. And from at least from my perspective, because I wasn't there all the time when both of them were there. I was only there when I was there and my dad was there.
sure. Yep.
But noticing that too early on and trying to change that's pretty big to even know that. And you had 5 chances, right?
Yeah, 5 chances to get it wrong, and again, none of it's perfect, but we it's a broken world. Our families are we have to work tenaciously to do well in our homes. But being an okay dad is good enough because that's better than most dads. But we got to constantly be striving
Mm-hmm.
to do better. And you can ask your spouse. You can say, hey, um, you watch me interact with this child. How do you feel like we do? What can I do different? Am I
Yeah.
listening well? All those different things. Many times for dads, half of parenting is setting our phones down
Mm-hmm.
and just listening to our kids and really being present with them. And so again, all those things that we can do to have our kids' hearts, it will make as we lead our kids, as we instruct them, as we discipline them, correct them, it'll make all that easier if we do the heavy lifting of the front end of developing that heart love relationship with our kids.
Yeah. I mean, we're all imperfect, normal families.
Indeed.
Only.
You can join the club, man.
Well,
You can join the club.
Barrett, do you want to raise that book up one last time? Put it in frame.
Yeah. So
right
I'll
next to it?
make a shameless plug. So our ministry is info for families. You can go to infoforfamilies.com. INFOFOR families. Got all kinds of resources, our books, events that we do, that kind of stuff. But this is our favorite book for dads and daughters. Meet me in the middle, just for fun. Another shameless plug. I should have kept my headphones closer by here. Just for granted, we wrote a book for fathers and sons to read called The Young Man's Guide to Awesomeness. It's not for fathers and sons necessarily like the other book is,
Mhm.
where you hand it back and forth, but it's a book really mainly written to teenage guys. The Young Man's Guide to Awesomeness: How to Guard Your Heart, Get the Girl, and Save the World. All the things that guys want to do. But it's a real easy to read book for teenage guys. For boys who don't like reading books, it's perfect. It's got like 25 little QR codes. You can scan a phone over and little videos pop up to kind of engage your
okay.
YouTube watching brain. And it's got a lot of
Yeah.
pictures just caveat again. I'm a former pastor, and so these books do have a little bit of a biblical worldview from a Christian
Mhm.
perspective. So if that's not your thing, probably want to pass. But it's not really preachy. It's just going to give some practical wisdom there
Yeah.
from the Bible there. But the goal desire is really just to get dads and their kids talking about things that matter as
Yeah.
dads really want to pursue meaningful relationship where they're teaching good things to their kids. So
Yeah. Well,
they can find all,
picking up a book, any book, at least you're in the right direction. To like all the
yeah,
dads out there, you're in the right direction, seeking out
no doubt.
information. it
No
doesn't
doubt.
necessarily just because it's got, a religious background, it's still
Oh, no, it's a
uncontent.
tool. You can sift out what you think is not for you and find the things that are
Yeah.
for you is hopefully the goal. And then
Yeah.
again, we created this. I keep on putting this on my screen here. We created this Smartphones 101. It's a digital course. If there's a parent out there, a dad who knows they need to coach your kids on how to use their smartphone with wisdom, or maybe just a dad who gave a phone to their kid a couple years ago and sees my kid's on the phone all the time. It's affecting who they are. It
Yeah.
scares me. You can go to smartphones-101.com and find out all about that. It's a great little resource for dads and their kids to go through together. So
Awesome.
another
Barrett.
shameless plug there. Love to resource.
No worries.
all your
I'll
dads, all I
put these
can.
links in the show notes for us too.
Fantastic.
All right. Let's see here, Barrett. You got any final words?
No, I love what you're doing. And as your audience grows and folks find this is just normal dads, my hope and prayer is that every dad out there will realize, hey, you know what? I'm not the perfect dad, but none of us are. And
Yeah.
so let's just keep on.
Exactly.
But let's not settle for, let's not settle for subpar. Let's
Yeah.
keep on striving to be the best
Let's
dads we
keep
can be.
working. I think
Indeed.
that's one of the main reasons for the podcast is
Love it.
doing this. If I'm not talking to somebody else, I'm not learning anything. So
It's great. Love what you're doing, man.
yeah,
Keep on
I
going.
really
all right?
appreciate it. Thanks for being part of this.
That's what if I can serve you in the future. Let me know, okay, bud?
All right. Appreciate it, Barrett.
Wait, is it recording right now? Cut that all out.